Emily Palmer is a reporter with the New York Times and covered the lengthy trial. She joins us now. Emily, thank you so much for being here. I guess not many people are surprised by the verdict, and probably not you. You've sat in that courtroom how many days now?
More than 40, just about every single day of the trial. It was not a surprising verdict. It was a bit surprising that it took so long to get there, but it was a very lengthy verdict form, 53 boxes to check, 10 charges, 27 violations stuffed into just the first one. And the jury certainly took their time deliberating and thinking through each count.
Going through each count, right, as they should. Now, you wrote it back in January, a very interesting piece about El Chapo's IT guy and how sort of high-tech his operation has become. But first off, tell us what sort of interesting tidbits did we learn from the IT guy?
So my colleague Alan Feuer also, he spent several stories talking about this particular guy because he was really the surprise witness and the surprise character in this trial. When you look at drug trafficking, you think about the ins and outs of getting the drugs across the border. You don't really think about the IT systems that might be put in place to get there. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I would say that Christian Rodriguez was the big surprise in the trial. He started working with El Chapo in 2008. He was just 21 years old. He gives these very detailed diagram presentations to the drug kingpin and convinces him that his information security system is not good enough. He then says, you know, I can make it better, and he creates an encrypted system online that allows El Chapo to call anyone, anywhere in the world, just using a dial-in service like you might have in your office, a 3-digit code, and no one would be able to crack the system. No one, that is, unless the IT guy turns you in later.
And he did, right?
He flipped.
He flipped for the authorities. But first off, he also helped El Chapo spy on people, correct?
Absolutely. So Chapo was very interested in what people thought of him. You actually see this dating back to the 1980s. He had cassettes where he would record people. He told one of his former lieutenants that he needed to know what his friends thought and what his enemies thought. You later see that Christian Rodriguez installed spyware into the phones of his mistresses, his wife, and that also is later turned against him. The government ended up with more than 1 million text messages between the drug kingpin and some of his associates because of the very spyware that Chapo had installed himself.
And how did the government get Rodriguez to flip? I mean, I would imagine that he was being paid very well by Guzman.
Well, I mean, paid very well, depending on who you talk to. The first system that he installed for Chapo was only $100,000, which sounds a lot for a lot of people, but not so much in the drug lords.
No.
In February 2010, FBI agents conducted a sting operation, actually right here in Manhattan. They met with Christian Rodriguez in a hotel, and they pretended to be from a Russian mob organization. Wanting a similar encrypted information system. He starts saying, yeah, I can build it. And then they say, actually, we're the FBI. You need to cooperate. And they actually considered Christian Rodriguez to be such an important cooperator that they paid him to continue working for the drug lord.
Incredible. And we learned through his testimony how advanced, running a drug operation is now, right? I mean, how much does tech play into it these days?
Well, it's hard to get a measure, but if you look at the Chapo trial as sort of a window into this world, you can only assume that it's much greater than one would think. If you look at spyware, that is actually something that you can buy online now. Anybody can have it. So if Chapo got it, who else could have it?
Right.
And there's always somebody like Christian Rodriguez who's going to be willing to work for people and to create systems that circumvent the government.
Fascinating stuff. And he certainly loved his engineering. Some of those tunnels that he did, I read that he sent people to Europe to study the latest tunnel making engineering and use that for his smuggling operation. Now, you spoke several times with his wife, Emma Coronel. What did she tell you about how she was coping with the trial, and what do you think is next for her?
Sure. I mean, that's very difficult to say what's next. I can say that she spoke very highly of her husband. They met when she was 17, married when she was 18. They've been married for over a decade. She spent about a third of her life as his wife. That entire time he's been on the run or in jail. And since his extradition back in 2017, they have had no contact. They have not spoken by phone. They have not spoken by letter. They have not seen each other face to face except in the courtroom. That's because she's actually been implicated in helping him in his most famous 2015 tunnel escape.
Is it possible she could face charges?
No. Actually, in Mexico, it is not illegal to escape from prison. And it's also not illegal to help from the outside.
Right.
If you were an inmate there, it would be illegal to help in that way.
But once he starts serving his sentence, you say she will never see him again?
So there will be a sentencing in a few months. She will see him there. And if there are any other court appearances, she could see him there as well. There are still open cases throughout the country that are still pending against him. If any of those go to trial and prosecutors say they are interested in doing that, then she could see him there.
All right. Well, Emily Palmer, thank you so much. Fantastic reporting on this trial.
Thank you so much for having me.